The world has ended. Everything that remains of humanity's culture is stored here in this podcast, a time capsule assembled by three white dudes from what was once called the Midwest. This is not everything. This is not most things. But this is it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of This Is It, a pop culture podcast for the end of the world. I'm Sam Webb.
And I'm Gabe Webb.
And I'm Daniel Osborne.
And here at This Is It, we discuss all the pop culture that needs to be preserved in our magic little time capsule for all of eternity, so that when the nukes drop, you can still remember what reality TV was like or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still get all the warm and fuzzies of a New Jersey housewife flipping the table at you.
You can't use it to make your water more potable.
But you can use it for smug self-satisfaction later on.
Exactly. You are going to be the guy in the bunker with all the up-to-date to when we recorded this references.
You liked all of it before it was cool.
Yeah.
And before the Earth's temperature cooled dramatically.
So dramatically. Man.
We got climate change really wrong.
Yeah, we were just looking in the wrong direction. That's for sure.
They warned us with Snowpiercer.
Yeah, Snowpiercer, which maybe we'll cover eventually in an episode about trains.
Or I think elephants.
Oh yeah, there was an elephant at some point.
The great train elephants of film. it's that and that one Indiana Jones movie, and we just covered it.
Operation Dumbo Drop.
Operation Dumbo Drop. Yeah, really any movie about water for elephants. Damn, there's actually a lot there. That's a deep well. But we're not talking yet about elephants and trains. Gabe, I think you had a topic you wanted to bring to the table this week.
Yeah, I wanted to bring to the table a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and that is the idea of the best worst movie you've ever seen. And I think best worst movies, I think most people have one, just like a guilty pleasure movie that you know is subpar. It's written poorly, bad acting, horrible effects, but at the end of the day, it just brings you so much joy to watch this beautiful disaster unfold in front of you. And I mean, there are definitely different directions you can take with it. There's the like camp, sort of hamming it up level. There's the unintentionally bad, there's the over dramatic. There's the gratuitously violent. There's so many ways that the best worst movie can go, as long as it's bad. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that to the table this week, and also maybe hear how you guys have intersected with them in your lives, and also learn maybe what some of your favorite worst movies are.
Yeah, I love that topic, and I love it because yes, I do think everybody has one, but there's also something that I don't know quite how to put my finger on, like why having best worst movies in your like repertoire in like your group of friends or what have you is so common. Like there's so many. This is not one of them necessarily, but there are so many podcasts devoted exclusively to people talking about terrible movies. Like there's something hard to deny about just the joy of critiquing something that it's safe to be critical of. And yeah, I think it's pretty great. The standard bearer is of course The Room. Like if we're just we're talking about like because The Room really hits at least one category of best worst movies, which is like not self-aware terrible, terrible filmmaking.
And this is a very important distinction between The Room and Room.
Room.
Starring
Yes.
Brie Larson.
Correct. Yes. Room is a movie that I have not seen that won Brie Larson a Best Actress award. The Room is a film directed, produced, written, and starring a man named Tommy Wiseau, something like that, and is essentially just this weird look into this man's perspective on all things. Like you get to see the way he processes how people talk and how relationships work and what football is, all through this very specific filter. But most importantly, you get to see a man who should not be acting put himself at the center of a movie and watch people who he's paid to act around him just ignore his blatant weirdness.
And it's written, it's a very full throttle. It doesn't let up. It's incredibly sincere in its belief that what it is not just a good movie, but a great movie. I also feel like the sexuality is kind of constantly full throttle, and just everything's just a little bit over the top. Wait, hold on. Not everything is more than a little bit over the top.
So over the top.
I think that's a really solid choice. Does he like die at the end?
Oh man, that's one of those. I've seen it, but I've never like. That's another element that I think is true of best worst movies, is that you don't actually like plot disintegrates. Like there's a point where once a bad movie has been sort of canonized, like it's not about the story. Like I don't remember how that movie wraps up, but that doesn't matter because the whole point is to watch it in a room full of people and like laugh and make fun of it the whole time.
Right. To your point, like I've seen The Room. I know that I've seen The Room multiple times.
Yes.
I have no idea what that movie is about.
No.
I couldn't even begin to describe what the plot really is.
Yeah, like because what makes it incredible is that regardless of what the actual story is, it's essentially just watching a movie about a man who's incredible, and that man just wanted to tell everybody how incredible he is, like through a film.
Yeah, and I mean, when I say I couldn't describe the plot, I don't mean it in the like literary sort of what is it? Like Bildungsroman, like the sort of sprawling retelling of a lifetime. In literature.
Like
I don't mean it in that
yeah.
sense. I don't mean it in a where to begin sense. I mean it in the does it begin sense.
Like, I am looking so hard for this plot and I cannot find it. But yeah, I do feel like, what are some of the other types of bad movies? Because I feel like that's a category unto itself, but that there are different types.
I mean, one of the picks I always come up with that was that found me at the right time was a picture called Teeth.
Those visceral reactions are us all remembering the movie Teeth.
So Teeth is a film. I can tell you what Teeth is about. Teeth is a film in which a young woman, as she kind of crosses from girlhood to adulthood, discovers that her vagina is full of razor sharp teeth. And she discovers this while getting sexually assaulted by her boyfriend, who, and you know, it ends very poorly for him. She cuts off his penis and
bites off his
excuse me, yes, bites. And throughout the whole through line of the movie is whenever she is threatened or under attack, that happens, she cuts off a creepy OBGYN's finger, bites off a creepy OBGYN's fingers the same way. But then she ultimately weaponizes her teeth in getting revenge. It was actually Gabe who kind of first, I was blissfully unaware, I was like 18 or 19, and I just wanted to believe
so naive
that this movie was accidentally a nightmare. And then Gabe was the first person to put in my brain, I think they meant for it to be bad, and my world shattered. It came tumbling down. Why would you why would you intentionally make a movie? But I think that there's an important place for that. I think there's an important place. I don't think that movie... I think the movie probably thought it was saying something like important about femininity or the environment, because she got the teeth because she grew up next to a power plant.
Oh yeah, and there are just like ridiculous shots of this like super wide shot of just this one house by a power plant, like a nuclear power plant.
There's always like the specter of the like 2 cooling towers in the background.
So I think it is still trying to be more high-minded than it lets on, but I think that I think it's okay for a best worst movie to try hard and to try to be bad. But I do think kind of from a purity standpoint, it gets docked a couple of pegs, because I think that's what's kind of, it fuels a lot of people's unfettered love, is the schadenfreude of like, you tried so hard and you screwed up so bad, and you're in Hollywood, you're supposed to be perfect.
Yeah. It does kind of have that Nickelback effect. On some level, I think we're also scared of like coming out with strong opinions about something that actually some people like. That the things that we can all just trust we're all on the same page with are so exciting. Both in like the really good, like on the other end, I would say like Beyonce. Like it's so safe to just be like, Beyonce's great because everybody feels that way, and you're super weird if you don't. And on the flip, like you're like, this movie is terrible, everybody nods, and then you feel like your primate brain is satiated.
I belong.
Yeah.
Not only do I belong here, I belong everywhere.
Thanks, Nickelback.
But I think that, to me, that raises an interesting question in admitting that you like best worst movies. Like the Schadenfreude element to it. Like, is it mean? Like, in a way. Like, is the world coalescing around the horribleness of a piece of, however loosely we want to throw the term around, art? Is that ultimately just kind of like cruel of us to just be like, yeah, this thing is so awful that all we can do is laugh at it?
I think some of that gets touched on. One of the most classic best worst movies is a film called Troll 2, which was a film made by Italians starring only Americans, and the only person on the crew who could speak both English and Italian was the costume designer. So we're already starting off, but it's about a family. It's a movie that extols the virtues of avoiding vegetables, because if you eat vegetables in this town, you turn into a goblin. Not a troll, but that's kind of for another day.
But the town was called Nilbog, right?
Nilbog.
Yeah, it's
Goblin
backwards. Yeah.
But there's been a documentary made called Best Worst Movie that's about that, and about and people have different levels of reactions. Some people are ashamed of that, and other people like, yeah, that was a weird thing I did once, and now I'm a dentist.
Yeah.
And it's kind of up to everybody to decide how much they let that color their lives. But now I feel bad. I never kind of like thought about like, man, is this, because my other pick is Nick Cage's Drive Angry 3D, which is part of this like weird career decisions he made. And I don't feel bad in the same way making fun of that one. But is that just because Nick Cage is easy to make fun of now? Like,
yeah, like
Gabe, you've led us into a moral quandary.
Yeah, and I think maybe either to make ourselves feel better, or because I really believe this, I think there is a qualitative difference between like Nick Cage making Drive Angry 3D and the people who made Troll 2, in that at the end of the day, Nick Cage is a successful Hollywood actor who collects millions of dollars per film. So I think that does actually, in my mind, that does make a difference. Yeah. Because ultimately you are being extolled as, for whatever it's worth, an expert in the field of acting. and then for you to continually make subpar films, definitely opens you, I think, more fairly to just outright ridicule.
Yeah.
I mean, Drive Angry 3D, before you start calling it a subpar film, I really want to address that in order to save his granddaughter,
Correct.
Nick Cage drives a muscle car out of literal hell.
Yes.
That is a literal place.
Yes.
In order to escape.
Correct.
Joins up with Amber Heard to go fight a devil worshipping cult, and the devil's servant is following Nick Cage to try and bring him back to hell. The pinnacle moment of ridiculousness is Nick Cage at one point has a shootout with. There's like 4 factions fighting Nick Cage.
There's like a cult who is like a devil worshipping cult, but don't let that confuse you, because the actual representative of the devil in the film does not support or in any way like this devil cult.
No.
He actually says they're really frustrating. They keep giving us like a bad name or whatever like that. So there's cult members and the actual authorities,
right.
like, because Nick Cage keeps breaking laws and murdering people.
In the course of driving angry, he does, in fact, he runs afoul of local law enforcement.
Yeah.
But in a shootout with one of these factions, Nick Cage's character is actively having sexual relations with a prostitute and murdering people.
Yes.
And
the prostitute seems like she's still having a great time.
is enjoying it until while in the throes of it, and only realizes later. I mean, we've all been there, that we look around after it's over and are just filled with shame.
And he was not ninja-ing these people. He
No,
was
he was
shooting them
shooting
with
them.
guns that were in his hands that were near her face.
Yep.
And yet she didn't realize there were people getting shot until that's just the level of heat that Nick Cage is bringing into the bedroom, is what
Right.
that's supposed to tell us.
I feel like it'd be amiss if I didn't do this terrible pun of today's episode. The show is called "This Is Shit." I think Gabe, you brought up just a salient point, that it's not about whether or not it's sincerely bad. It's kind of the stakes of
Like what our deciding as a group to judge it, like what that actually does to the people involved. Because I feel like Nick Cage invites us to ridicule him because he's essentially given up on having any sort of artistic integrity to make as much money to pay off his tax debt as possible. That's, I think, the deal with Nick Cage. But when someone really genuinely fights to get a bunch of money together so they can make a movie, it feels a little different to then turn on that.
But I would add to that, though, that I think making a movie is ultimately inherently an act of some degree of ego.
Yes.
And that what you have had to do is, to your point, ultimately assemble money and people around this thing that you want to produce. You have had to do all the legwork to bring all these other people on board. And I think there is a sort of level of ego that I think also opens you up to criticism. In the end, once you put something out there with your name on it and it is bad, it is bad. You have to be ready and willing to accept that you can't control people's reactions at that point.
Well, Gabe, what's you brought this up, but what are your picks?
I have a long history of loving best worst movies, loving bad movies. As hard to believe as that might be, with my highbrow interests and fanciful ideas. My love of them was definitely cemented by one in particular, and it's one Sam and I saw together.
to the point about shared experience.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Because it was probably close to 3 a.m. at this point.
Yeah, it was very late at night.
We were just hanging out in Sam's basement, and we stumbled onto the Sci-Fi channels, broadcast of a movie called, it was Night
of the Undead 4 or something, like
for those of you who are going to Google this later,
Yeah.
the most important thing is Rave to the Grave.
yes, it was the 4th installment in a series. Apparently, we have not seen any of the other installments.
And the premise of the film is that a barrel shows up in this quiet hamlet
Yeah.
in contemporary America somewhere, and it contains a zombie.
Yes, and I believe that if you're a fan of the franchise, which we are not, if you're like up on this franchise, you are supposed to know that there's a zombie in this barrel. Like in the previous movie, the climactic scene is a bunch of zombies being put in barrels or something. Because it's like, it just, the way it tells the story, it really does feel like, it's like, oh, you know what's in there. Like, there's a dramatic shot of a barrel that's supposed to, like, imply, like, uh-oh.
Right.
Clearly zombified.
Throughout the film, it one of the characters who is knee deep in the ecstasy club drug scene in this Footloose-esque town.
Yeah.
Discovers that the contents of the barrel have hallucinogenic properties when taken in pill form.
Yeah, and they can't open the barrel. They can just somehow drain the fluid from it. So they don't know what's inside except for this liquid that they can get out of a tap.
Right.
They've tapped the keg of this barrel.
But the twist is that after you take this drug that they derive from the contents of the barrel, it's basically on par with being bitten by a zombie in the realm of zombie lore. You become a zombie at that point.
Yeah.
You get an intense high followed by transition into zombie.
Yes.
And this is unleashed at a school dance or rave in the middle of, I think, ruins.
There may be some sort of Electric Boogaloo style premise where it's they've got to have the biggest rave ever in order to save the community center or whatever. They're trying to make money off of having a party or something, and so they're we got to use this crazy zombie drug that they do call Z. Even before they know that it creates zombies, they call it Z, short for zombie, because of what the drug makes you when you're high look like a zombie. And they don't realize.
Right. So yeah, I mean throughout it there's these two agents from Interpol who are sent to, I guess, track down the barrel, but I don't really understand how they know it's missing.
Yeah.
I also feel like no one had any idea how Interpol works. But also this movie it's Ukrainian.
Yeah, it's Ukrainian. It's a produced in Ukraine movie meant for American audiences, where the acting in many cases is so bad that certain characters' all of their dialogue is replaced. And so they essentially had someone stand in and say the words, but their accent was so bad that they just are never allowed to be heard in the movie.
So there's just so many the production element, the over the top, the bizarre premise of it, but also just the over the top nature of a lot of the scenes.
Yes.
Just leaning into their own hokiness. For what, in one scene, a band is rehearsing, a rock band.
Yes.
Drums, guitars, bass, singer, and a bunch of zombies show up, and the band members take to their instruments in self-defense.
Yeah, they use their guitars as weapons.
So drummer stabs a zombie with a drumstick. But the climactic moment in my mind of this whole altercation is someone using an electric guitar, like an axe, to decapitate a zombie.
This man hits a zombie in the neck with an electric guitar, not a sharpened electric guitar, but an inch and a half thick guitar, and the zombie's head just flies off.
And there's also the scene in the where the couple is in the car.
Yes.
And It's like, again, classic Americana, like setup, like couple in the car at makeout point.
Yeah.
Like, things start getting heated, sensually heated, not like debate heated.
Yeah, they don't start delving into politics.
And the girl starts like going down on the guy. At which point he announces, "I usually only get this when we go to Olive Garden."
Yeah.
And then you just hear like the sound of like a crunchy water balloon.
Yeah. Like a lot of Foley work done and then laid over top of each other. So many noises happening. And it's not what it would actually sound like if this happened, but it is clear enough to be like, oh, okay. This man had his whole dingle his old dingle taken.
No, but like there are just so many reasons to love this movie. And I feel like, I mean, those are two clearly great reasons to love it, and like two great scenes in cinema.
So the thing I need help kind of delineating is the very, like, the premise being best worst movie. How are we separating that? How are we making sense for future discoverers of pop culture? It's not just like a bad movie.
Yeah.
Like, thinking
Right.
back to the most recent bad movie I saw was snippets of the third Alvin and the Chipmunks movie, Road Chip. That I was
Not Chipwrecked.
maybe no, it was definitely Road Chip.
Okay.
So maybe it was the second one. I don't know, but it was.
No, the second one is the Squeakquel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think you might have seen the fourth.
Okay. Oh my.
I think there are
There's
4.
so many. But that's not so bad it's good.
Correct.
It's so bad I want to die. So far, the only through line I can kind of extrapolate is penis removal. And I don't think that's the answer. I don't think removal of penises by teeth is the correct answer. So what's the answer for when a movie is so bad it's good?
For me, part of it is definitely the social element that we talked about a little, in terms of just like this thing you can all laugh at.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that obviously laughter brings people together. It's nature's medicine. It's almost like the uncanny valley in terms of like robotics. You know, like we are fine with robots that look like robots. We are less fine with robots that look like people, because people are so good at understanding people that when something tries to emulate a person and it fails, we are repulsed by it.
Yeah.
So we have this kind of the uncanny valley, but for so bad it's good. It's a good thing. Like, we have this kind of linear progression upwards. It's kind of like an uncanny spike. This linear progression downwards of a bad movie, and you go through something like, I don't know, what's just a mediocre movie, like The Imitation Game, on your way down. And on the far end of the scale is Alvin and the Chipmunks, Road Chip.
Yeah.
But in between those 2 points, there's this spike upward in quality where we get raved to the grave. This spike upward, in enjoyability.
Yeah.
Right.
Where we get raved to the grave. But it has to fit on this narrow band between a mediocre movie and unpleasantly bad movie.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think it's a narrow target, or at least like narrower than maybe we have made clear so far this episode.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to like put your finger on like what exactly the qualities that differentiate it are.
Part of me wants to just break it down in the same way that you would analyze like why something in general is funny. It's like why babies laugh at peekaboo is because they think their mom disappeared, and then it's like, oh, it's cool, she's there. So like it's just a extrapolation out from that moment of like we develop a way of identifying a pattern, and then there are certain ways in which that pattern gets broken that like it's okay. So like you watch the Squeakquel and it's just bad. Like this is the pattern is movies, like the aesthetic of film, storytelling. The Squeakquel is just like that pattern That is, it is. It's trying to like trick you into paying $8 to go see it, and it's just like lazy, and you don't like it because it's
the formula tells. So what I'm hearing from you is and it's the road ship.
sorry.
Get the correct. That the formula and everything about the context tells me it's going to be bad, and I don't enjoy it because then it is bad. But in something like Rave to the Grave or Troll 2, everything about the context tells me this is going to be bad, and then all of a sudden it's not.
Yeah, it's like it's because it's surprising.
Yeah, there's a moment in Troll 2 that stands out for me and a lot of people where the dad has punished his son for ruining all the vegetables, which of course would turn them into goblins because like the kid from the Shining, he knows.
Yeah.
And so he puts him up in his room, he starts to fiddle with his belt and like, oh, Dad's gonna belt his son. Dad, what are you doing? I'm tightening my belt so I don't get hunger pains.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that, like, you think they're gonna go left and they go right. That when they do it out of a wait, this is written by someone who is not like me. Like, this was made, the people involved in this movie think about the world differently than I do, and like, so when you watch it, it is always surprising. Like, you're like, no, that is not what the real world or even like what real movies do. And so when it happens, you're like shocked, but in a way that you're like, all right, well, I didn't sign up for like a great movie, so I'm not disappointed.
So following this line of topic, there's almost a part of me that wants to say that not only are best worst movies more enjoyable than they should be, that they actually might be a higher form of art than they're even given credit for because of their uniqueness, because of zigging when they should have zagged.
But I think part of, like, to that point, I think part of a best worst movie is in a lot of ways unintentionality, even when it is even like the example of Teeth, like a lot of the best worst movie enjoyable elements of Teeth are when it's not trying. And I think a lot of it comes from the, like, a lot of the over the top elements of these kinds of movies, like to what you were saying, Sam. We have these patterns that we sort of understand, like Rave to the Grave and Teeth too, or like we understand the genre of horror,
right?
Like we know that it's sort of like every scene sort of builds to a crescendo of a sort of gotcha moment. But in the case of Teeth and Rave to the Grave, Teeth being the repeated removal of genitals, fingers, and whatnots, and Rave to the Grave being the occasional overlap there, and also like decapitation with guitars. Those elements are just so obviously over the top. It's almost unbelievable that like someone would sincerely pass this off as a viable climax to that scene.
Yeah. And I think that's an important thing that we haven't necessarily touched on yet. I don't think that a so bad it's good movie can be a comedy. Like, it's like, you can't have a movie that's like trying for laughs, that's getting them, but unless it's always in just like the wrong places. Because I feel like every movie we talked about is trying to be a drama or a horror film or an action film, and then they're all accidental comedies. I don't know that I can think of like any movie that's like a pure like comedy, and that's kind of where we get into the Road Chip. Where like Road Chip is trying to be like a goofy kids comedy, and it's just that it just makes it a not good movie.
Right.
Like, in most comedies, there's not enough room for there to be like bad attempts at jokes, and then space between those attempts at jokes for there to be an unintentional joke as well. Like, it's just them swinging and missing over and over again. Just like part of what makes Rave to the Grave funny is because they're swinging and missing at horror, but it comes off as humor.
But not at zombies.
Nail
those zombies.
Yeah, they're nailing those zombies.
And then at the end, Interpol just like drops a bomb on the park.
Yeah, Interpol blows it up, and then it's like, cool. I guess we're gonna go make part 5 somewhere else.
Right, like there's no like attempt. These are like teenagers. There's no attempt to like cure them of this zombie ailment.
Yeah,
They already know. They already know from parts 1 through 4.
yeah.
That's true.
They can't go back.
I will say that another one of my favorite best worst movies is High School Musical 2. Which I don't know if it necessarily disproves the... I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a case for it being a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't know that it necessarily bucks the trend of trying to be one thing but then unintentionally becoming another thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, plenty of the scenes are played for serious drama.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, definitely.
For instance, there's a musical number that takes place on a golf course where Zac Efron...
Oh, you mean Bet on It?
Yeah, the song Bet on It, where Zac Efron's character is having this very dramatic crisis kind of moment while also dancing around a golf course.
Yes.
Eventually coming to a pool of water where he sings to his own reflection and in anger slaps the water.
No.
So like, what? Yeah, like again, I think, yeah, the most best worst movie moments of High School Musical 2, you are being led someplace and then being not disappointed, but surprised
by what actually has happened. So just to like list off everything we've if we're adding to the time capsule.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like the list of movies that we need to include for the future. We've got Teeth. We've got Rave to the Grave. We've got the Squeakquel. No, we don't. That's not in there.
only Chipwrecked.
Yeah.
But only as a reference point for what it's not.
Yeah. The Room.
Troll 2.
Troll 2. Drive Angry.
High School Musical.
High School Musical 2.
Yeah.
What would make my heart warm is the idea that the future finds this time capsule with only those films in it and bases all their understanding of American cinema on those movies. Because that is the other thing that, like, if we're putting these in a time capsule, we also need to hope that there's other movies that they can use as a, like, this is like what you watch after you've sort of developed an understanding of what a good, like, movie is.
Right.
I think we'll just have to do more episodes.
Yeah, and we'll just have to prepare you with actual quality content at some point to then watch before you get to these movies.
Yeah.
So put this time capsule in another time capsule and wait until you've watched the other things in this time capsule and then open up that time capsule and watch these movies.
Yeah.
Seems like a good plan.
Yeah. I think we're done here.
Cool. Do you want to seal it up?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah. We good to go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is it. I'm Sam Webb,
And I'm Gabe Webb.
And I'm Daniel Osborne.
and let's seal this time capsule.
Board, sliggly, gliggly,